Guys, this is what if Issei and his friends got the solo leveling gear. This would be Issei, Matsuda, and Moto Hanma. Matsuda being the one with the bald head, Moto Hanma being the one with glasses. The two of now we'll start off with this video as Issei, Matsuda, and Moto Hanma are all hanging out at the age of 13. They're young, dumb, and full of cum. You know how it is. Now they're going doing their whole damn thing. They're swinging on things. They're training. They're in the forest of Kuo having a whole good ass time. Now they're smart. They're kind of stupid, but they're smart. They wind up going and finding an abandoned looking area where against this giant boulder, nearly a mountain of its own right, a rock, they wind up finding a door in it. They all wind up, and this is in a cave. They're in the cave, they look. Now, there's some cave explorers going, and about 5 hours after they get lost, in that cave, they're walking. They find a giant door. They're like, oh, cool. They open it. Of course, it's the solo leveling dungeon thing, dungeon in a dungeon, but it's not really a dungeon. It's dungeon, but just not what they're expecting. They walk in. They are confused as fuck. And that thing starts sending fire. Now they're not gonna start running. They're buddies. They're not gonna try fleeing from this thing. They look at it. They read the three things on the wall. They're like, "I." And Matsuda comes up with the idea, "Hey, let's bow." As they're just like, "Yeah, sure, let's bow." They bow because Issei checks if the higher they go, because he threw something in the air and that got instantly obliterated. So they all kind of bow down, and after a second, they kind of figured it was alright. They stand up, they're good. Then they wind up figuring out that the statues are moving, and they don't want to die. So they all find a different statue. One goes to a trumpet player, one goes to drums, the other one goes to a voice. They all get there. Safely ish. Issei loses a leg. Matsuda loses an arm. And Moto Hanma, the one with glasses, actively has one of his eyes ripped out. Very graphic, I know. They're all kind of fucked, since that was their main thing. Although, kind of swap for Issei and Moto Hanma, since Moto Hanma's singing his legs, and Matsuda's singing his legs, and Issei singing his arm. Anyway, they get the idea to go to the altar and stare, and at the end of the altar, once everything's kind of burned away, they should have been able to walk out, but instead, everything's fighting at them. It's 1v5. Now, of course, when the vinyl thing runs out, since they couldn't cover all 6 of the things, they could only cover 3. They kept kind of looking back and forth, trying to hope it would work. It didn't work. And they tried fighting them off. They lose, of course. But they're all 3 just laid out, they had pocket knives on them to protect themselves in the forest in case a random animal attacked them or some weird pervert trying to come after them. Y'all know how we go. Anyway, so they find them, they using their knives trying to fight as well as they can. They all get their ass whipped. They all wind up getting a leveling system. Issei is like Sun Jinwoo, the other ones being something similar but not quite. Now, over the next 4 years, since they're 13 to go to 17, over those 4 years, they are training like a motherfucker. They are training like crazy. They fighting, they swinging, they fighting, they getting their ass whipped a little bit, but they fighting. Now, of course, white means they're not dangerous. Orange means they're on the same level, and red means there are the end game. They whoop everybody's ass. Now, of course, they're all going in dungeons together, being buddies. They all realize they all have the same level and thing, being all in the same hospital room too. They can see each other's little stat boards, but they're the only people who can. Since when their parents found out, they were going to start trying to separate them, but the 3 of them said no. We were in danger, and they were injured up. They were scratched up, beaten up pretty bad. Looks like somebody attacked them in there. And they can't exactly say what happened, but they can say they got their ass whipped. Now, of course, they're all kind of dragging themselves through the dungeons that they go in. First one's in the subway system, fight a giant snake. They've, of course, been amping up their strength. They fucked that one up. Now, over the next few years, they keep doing dungeons. I'd say they all wind up reaching, say, level 45. At level 45, they would be as strong as Sung Jinwoo was. I'd say that's roughly A rank. And that's comparable to a high class devil. I'd say 45 would put them above Rias. I'd say putting them on par with not Sir Zex, but say Graphia. They'd be about as strong as Graphia. Now, that's a high ass power in the devil community, and they know that they are fucking powerful. Nothing in Akuo could ever stop them if they went berserk. Although, granted, if they were to fight somebody like, say, Azazel or Ajuka, any of the strongest, they get their ass whipped. At this point, Issei would have unlocked his gear, and that blade, Hero's Slicer. Hero Slicer is some badass blade that was, through generations, forgotten by the church or something like that. He got it through the solo leveling kind of shop. Now, Mitsuda and Motohama both have daggers. One is the Helheim's. One is the dagger of Helheim, which was one of the first things they unlocked, and the other is the dagger of Nymph. Nymphs being the little spirit creatures of the forest. Now, Helheim being where souls would go in Norse mythology. Now, these two blades have their own little stat effects. One of them freezes you in place, and the other one wraps you in. The other one drains all your energy. So one basically makes it where you're ice cold to the touch, where you're getting slowed. The other one, you're so stuck in. You're getting repetitively drained of all the energy and mana you have until you have nothing left, and then it starts taking from your life force. And Issei's, it has the most messed up. Anything that it hit cuts, the wound will not just heal. It has to you need to use a healing item on it. That or you have to have someone who is a healer to try to heal it, but it can't heal over time. It'll always get worse. And it will burn. The longer the wound is left open, the more painful it gets. Now, they wind up going to and this is right before Issei would meet Rainair, or Yuma Amano. They would wind up going to a dungeon, one last one, called the Realm of Helheim. This dungeon is, I'd say, upper A rank, possibly S rank. It is the most powerful dungeon to date. They're fighting, and they are not ready for this. They are getting their ass whooped. Everything in their fights. It is a bunch of skeletal and decomposing Vikings, a few Norsemen with the weird abilities of being giant powerhouses. Now, they're fighting. They wind up barely getting to the boss room. They realize how powerful the boss is. It is not a Norse god, though. It is a fallen angel wearing Norse gear. Zerokabil. Zerokabil is Kokabil's older brother, an 8-wing fallen angel, stronger than the rest. As an 8-wing, he would be on par with Greyfeel or stronger, but he has 2 gears given to him by Azazel, because he was the strongest of Azazel's army that wasn't in the cadre class. One of them is the eyes of Dorachin. Dorachin, or Doragnil, would be the dragon of true fire. Its eyes would burn you if you looked into them. Your very soul would burn on to looking at it. This would be given to Motohanma, after Issei would wind up getting it when they kill it. Now, the other would be something of the divine gear. It is called Zorosk's leg. Now, Zorosk was another dragon, but it was known for being able to speed blitz anything. These were both right next to Drake and Albion. The only thing is that they were defeated by the entire Fallen individually while they slept. Their abilities put into gears by Azazel that were never put into circulation. That's why when the strongest Fallen died, that wasn't a cadre, he would kind of be granted, they would stay with his body, and he would be put into a weird system thing as it goes. As issei would wind up, when they would defeat him, issei would get both of these ones given them to his friends as he would unlock his gear in this dungeon. That's what let them survive, because a lot of the things in this dungeon were stronger than they should have been. Like I said, if the life bar is orange, that's how, then it's on the same level as the character that's looking at it. Now, they're all three around the same strength, and they wind up stopping when they get hit square in the stomach by this character, because his boost, he has something similar to the boost. Every 10 seconds, it'll multiply speed. That would be given to Mitsuda. The bald one, because he's the fastest runner. Now, the three of them would all be going. They wind up meeting. They would be chilling at Kuo, figuring out that they all just reached level 65. And this is S-Class. This is Sir Zex and up. Now, not Sir Zex and up, but you'd have to be one of the cadre or on par with a Devil King to even stand a chance at fighting. Hell, I'd say that's the same amount of power that Loki had. So they'd be about as strong as Loki was in canon. Now they're fighting, of course, doing their thing through dungeons, and they wind up all going to different castles. They thought they were going to the same one for the job change quest. They don't really think it's going to be that good. Then they realize their job changed was different. They're doing the job change, and they're fighting. They thought they'd all be in the same castle fighting, but no, they're all in different ones. Now, of course, the gears make it slightly easier, but issei would wind up getting the Shadow Monarch. Mitsuda would wind up getting the Demon Monarch, and Motohanma would wind up getting the Angel Monarch. Or, no, it'll be Shadow, Fear, no, you know what, Shadow, Demon, Angel, okay? As they would wind up doing this, and they don't all get a kind of summon ability. Issei's allows him to summon anything. Now, of course, he used this, got a few soldiers to back him up, but that didn't work very well. What he would get was, forget his name, Igris. Yes, Igris. The other one is Yggdrasil, and the one that went to Mitsuda would be Igrosos. Igrosos is a strong thunder wielder. They'd be kind of magical. Now, they'd all get a kind of weird ability to summon them, into a sense, but they'd all be different kind of creatures. They're a different version of them. All Mitsudas are dark red, big, beefy demons. Similar to biblical demons, or things like that, Demons from media, of course. And all Motohanmas would be angelic variants of that character. Kind of like the good, the evil, and the dark sides, About the little shoulder thing where it's like there's little beings on your shoulder talking into your ear. An angel, a devil, and there's something that's just your inner thoughts, your bad side. That's what they get. Now, they're all chilling. They wind up all going to different spots, heading home after this job change. Now, they wind up each meeting someone different. Issei winds up meeting Reiner or Yuma Amano. Mitsuda winds up meeting Kalwiner. And Mitsuda winds up meeting Middled. They're all finally asked out for the first time, and they all wind up going to different dates on the same day. Now, they're chilling. They do their dates in different areas. One goes to an amusement park, which would be Mitsuda. One would go shopping and eat burgers, that'd be Issei. And one of them would wind up going on a kind of, on a weird, on a stroll through the woods, because that was what Middled wanted. Now, of course, they wind up going. They're determined to have sacred gears because they just got their sacred gears. One of them has the eyes of flame, which allows him to pretty much burn anything. Now, this would also basically depend on magic, but his flames would get hotter every 10 seconds, doubling in heat. Yeah, it's something about the heavenly dragons in 10-second increments for their powers. Who knows? Anyway, one gets stronger every 10 seconds, one gets faster every 10 seconds, one can take that from somebody every 10 seconds and give it to themselves, and one of them has the ability to burn things. Probably should have found a different stat to take, but whatever. Anyway, they be going, they chillins. Now they all wind up meeting at the same fountain. The girls are like, close your eyes and follow me, as they're kind of letting him on. They're all being very quiet when they see each other at the tip of the mountain. They stop, and they can all sense something's wrong. Now, the three of them would wind up throwing light spears at Issei, Matsuda, and Motohama after the girls would say, would you die for me? Now, of course, Issei puts his hands up. Matsuda and Motohama do the same, but they wind up using Shadow, Demon, and Angel transition, where they can just vanish from the area. Although they don't. They think, you know what? Nah. Let's go. And they wind up beating the fallen angels. Of course, they knew that these were fallen since it was the same thing that they had fought. The dude with the gears that they got the gears from. Now, when they see these gears activated, Matsuda takes his glasses off, folds them up, and put them in his pocket. Motohama does that. Matsuda, a giant blue gauntlet appears on his leg. While Matsuda, when he put his glasses off, you could see that there's kind of a goggles helmet appearing on him. The first of each of these gears, little thing for the arm with Issei. Matsuda's was barely covering his ankle, it was like a slide. And Motohama barely got, something that barely covered his eyes. But after their first awakening, they see that they get a difference. Matsuda gets a kind of helmet. It's more of a mask at first. Well, Matsuda gets in what looks like a tennis shoe that barely goes up to his ankle. Motohama gets a set of goggles that would cover it would be like a mask that would cover his face. And Issei, of course, gets most of the way down his forearm with the gauntlet. Now, they keep doing their little trainings. After they wind up fighting, they wind up meeting Rias and Sona. Now, because these are two lost gears and the Red Dragon themselves, so they're purple, blue, white, and red. Purple and blue being the dragons of different, purple being the one for the goggles, blue being the one for the leg. Now, these are the 4 heavenly dragons. 3 of the heavenly dragons are in Kuo, and they're not fighting each other. 2 of which have been missing for nearly 2,000 years and are well known in the community because of how strong they were. This is the equivalent of Drake and Albion showing up as best friends 2,000 years after vanishing from existence. Now, this has Rias freaking the fuck out. And Sona, they already called their siblings terrified. Surzex and the little Leviathan girl appear nearly instantaneously. And if you're wondering why they didn't do this during the time with Kokobeel, this is a bigger deal. They appear and they are terrified. Surzex is in full battle gear with his entire peerage behind him. Seraphal Leviathan is completely decked out in her warrior garb, with her peerage behind her, with a bunch, and I mean a bunch, of weapons and armory ready. They're all showing up to fight. They think it's about to be a triple. 3 of the heavenly dragons are going to go kill their sisters. So they're there to fight. Now, they stop. Issei admitting how he actually likes Rias. before Sir Zex and them show up. They were made aware, but they didn't fight yet. Now, when they appear, Issei winds up wanting to test his mettle against Sir Zex. So would Sir Zex, and because they wound up, this was something that got Sir Zex involved. It would also get Ijuka involved. Now, Ijuka wanted to see what they could do since they were powerful. Being the only other demon on par with Sir Zex, they figured, screw it, let's fight. Now, this is when they said, we're not your enemies, but you will not want us to be anyway. They're stronger than them. They know this. Because their health bars are kind of orange. Except for Seraphal Leviathan, hers is a white health bar. She's not a threat anymore. Now, of course, that's because she's the weakest out of the 3 demons that showed up, but she's no slouch herself. Just not compared to these characters who are all past level 60. Oh, and their max level is going to be about 140, and then they have to that's kind of their max in leveling, but their stats will just get major boosts. Now, don't get me wrong, after all of this, their stats are all way past level 60. They've all been doing this for years. They've had it since they were 13, that's 4 years at minimum. 4 years times 365 days since those daily quests they always do would just be unstoppable. Now, we see that they are fighting like a motherfucker. They be fighting. They wind up bowing. Sir Zex realized how strong these 3 are. I'd wind up kind of backing down. Although in this version, when Rias went to give Issei when he would offer her the pieces, Issei would accept. And ironically, the fact that Sona only has 4 pieces left, and that would be her pawns, they wind up making a deal. Issei, when he became a full-fledged devil, would wind up getting his buddies into being devils. And Ria said that's a good idea. Since she didn't feel like putting them in individual pieces yet, since she didn't think it'd be worth it. Well, she knew they were powerful enough, she just didn't know if the piece would be strong enough for her. If they ever, even with Issei alone, if he ever decided to turn on her, her entire peerage wouldn't be able to do a damn thing about it. Now, this is when we started going through Season 1. We meet Asya. Same thing pretty much would happen, only in this version, with Issei have kind of already backing down the fallen angels. They were just hiding in the church, and when she went to go take Asya, she wound up stabbing Issei with a light spear. Issei wouldn't care and chopped her head off. Now, Issei chopping her head off would revive her as his own kind of personal thing in a shadow. Matsuda and Motohama do the same with Kalwaner and Middled. As they wind up, it's ironic because Motohama has the angel gear, which gives her pure white wings and gives her an angelic look, while Mitsuda has the demon gear, which gives them demonic looking wings. Well, Issei just is a shadow of what the character was. It's just them as a shadow. Now, as they do this, and these are all hiding in his shadow, of course, they wound up going through, figuring out how powerful they are, and they wind up seeing how powerful. Now, they wind up walking around in the Occult Research Club. They chillin', they all kind of hanging out. Matsuda and Monohama are now allowed to join the Occult Research Club, but they were never the same perverted trio. They were known as pervs, but they also were known as the 3 most attractive perverts in Kuo. As neither of them kind of knew, but they were on the list of the hottest dudes at the school. It was Kiba, Issei, Saji, Matsuda, Motohanma. In that order. And then every other guy. But that was the list of the hottest dudes on campus. Because we were devil magic, of course. But most of it was just because they were confident, kind of hot guys to the girls. And they were stronger than anyone else in Kuo. And the girls knew the strength. Issei was known to be running around off campus, even during his lunch, He was known to be running around campus in just a bright red tank top, doing laps around the school or around the field. Either way. And he was fast as shiznick. Now, of course, we'd get to see Issei sprinting. Now, of course, this is when we get to the point with them reviving Asya. She becomes the bishop. She gets hot for Issei. Issei gets the hose. He gets this from Rias. Rias and them all go to Issei. Now, of course, when the strength of the Shadow Monarch, it's similar to kind of... And the fact that he always be styling on everyone he fighting. When they were dealing with Donaseek, Issei wound up getting Donaseek. Because he would chop Donaseek clean in half and vertically down the side. He would cut his torso and waist off. He would slice him at the midway point and then chop clean through his head. From head down to his middle. And then would revive his shadow. Although he would become way stronger as a shadow anyway. Now, of course, none of them are as strong as Igris, but they are very notable ones. Now, they're fighting, training, getting things figured out, but not all the way. As we wind up seeing Issei kind of fighting. Of course, Issei fighting would be nothing new since he just went to a new dungeon, won it, done. Anyway, one night, Issei's just chilling. He's relaxing, just had himself some cup noodles. As Reese would bust in through a weird portal. Now, she kind of fine. She go naked. She want to fuck. Issei says, hell yeah. They kind of get in and on it. So, of course, right when they're actually getting into the business, Issei butt-ass naked. And this is when you see, boom, another portal appears. Scares the dog shit out of Issei when he's in the middle of when he's putting it in. He's putting it in, and Greyfield's ice dagger goes up to his neck. He says, oh, hell nah, to the nah. Fuck that. As he backhands Greyfield full force and stops an inch away from her face. As he said, could you give us some privacy, girl? And take that dagger off me. It's cold as fuck. Greyfield would say how this, and the other, and about Reese's engagement. Issei told her, do you want to be engaged? And she said, nope. And he was just like, well, I don't see the problem then. Plus, smashing is smashing. I ain't got no problem with that. So they do their business. The next morning, they all wind up meeting, of course, Riser Phoenix. Riser's being a dirtbag. That's how it goes. Now, of course, Riser, after being a douchebag, would wind up getting humbled. Biblically humbled by Issei. Because when he sent his pawn, Issei kind of just styled on her, took her bow staff, smacked Riser square in the mouth with it, handed it back to her, and booted Riser into the wall. Now, this is without his gear on, and this is when he turned his gear on, the boosting gear, just to style on him, because he is as strong as Sir Zex with just being in his base. No gear needed. Now, he styles on him, and is basically every time Riser's trying to swing on Issei's kind of just doing, like, tricks around it, and this is when he took the Shadow of Donaseek and stabbed Riser in the neck with a kind of dark, shadowy light spear that stabs clean into Riser's stomach, with the second one from the other hand going through his back. As Riser is flattened and covered in his own blood, realizing how fucked he'd be if he fought. But he notes Reese isn't as strong as Issei. Issei is the strongest one there, and he sees the boosted gear. He thinks that's how he does it. And the shadow is just some weird latent human ability that he had gained from something or another. Anyway, they get out of there. They do the whole week of training. Issei's pretty much just sword fighting with Kiba, seeing how strong they can get, doing his stats, getting stronger slightly by slightly, does a dungeon, wrecks the dungeon, becomes level 97, with, of course, Matsuda and Monohama training with them. Now, they're done with the training. They're all Issei level 97, Matsuda level 96, Monohama level 96. Because Issei did a little bit more training and did a single dungeon by himself. That was a low level, like F tier dungeon. but did the job. Now they're going. Issei fights against Riser, folds Riser, just clear folds Riser. They fight Riser's team. Issei still used Dress Break. Now before when right as Konoko's gonna start trying to say it's enemy to all women, yada yada yada, he's like, "Get out! We gotta get out of here." What? As Issei would grab Konoko and just launch out of there at full speed using a kind of dash ability. They get out of there and they just see this giant lightning bolt slam down. I could have done that, but I don't need to, as Issei said that. As we'd wind up seeing Konoko go with Kiba when the queen would show up, and instead of having Akeno do it, she said Akeno charge up for more pawns, as Issei would fight and wind up going hand in hand with the queen. Riser would do the same. He would jump into the fight to fight Issei. This would mean the queen and Riser are fighting Issei right now. Now they fighting, they explode Issei, sending him backwards into, guessed it, the principal's office, which is pretty much the home field advantage that lets the pawns power up, which Issei accepts. He powers up and he flies full speed. Boom! Rocks Riser's shit so bad that Riser's jaw is vibrating. He cannot realize where he is. One backhand and a lightning bolt from Akeno, boom, the queen's out. They wind up having Akeno spraying down lightning on the entire fight, as Issei would wind up going boost and transferring the power, what he could, into Akeno, and using his shadows to fight the group. Of course, they barely win, but they still win barely. Of course, barely winning is still winning. The shadows wind up getting taken out halfway in the fight, but they wind up getting instantly resummoned. They fighting, that's it. They beat Riser. Thing is, Riser doesn't want to take the L, so he's repeatedly getting his ass whooped by Issei. As every time he was fighting Issei ran out of mana, so he's just man-to-man boxing. But this is when Riser holds a flaming thing burning Kiba by his neck, and he's going to kill Kiba doing this. But Rias winds up saying, "Stop! I surrender!" Since Kiba's kind of gonna die, and no one wants Kiba to die. Now, Issei would have been fine fighting him, but he was stopped when the sister winds up grabbing him by his waist and tries kind of seducing him in a sense. Doesn't really work. While Issei's still trying to get Riser, the sister's got her hands on his hips, trying to pull him back, trying to beg him to do anything, that she'll do anything for him to not hurt her brother. That's how it go. Now, of course, this means Reese would have to marry Riser. Issei says, "Oh, hell nah," and he winds up crashing the engagement. Who gonna stop him? Nobody, that's who, when Sir Zex is even scared of him. He walks in with Matsuda Motohama tailing him. They all kind of fight in, and when you see these two humans in the demon realm, fucking everybody up. These three humans are fucking people up. Except for the fact that Issei is not a human, he's a devil, but still, they're folding people. And this is when Issei winds up challenging Riser into a man-to-man fight. Winner gets Rias. As this is what Riser's proclaimed, winner gets Rias. But one of them has to fully surrender. Or one of their teammates have to tell them that they have surrendered. Of course, there's X says, "Deal." Not realizing that with the wording, Riser shouldn't have ever lost since he'd never surrender and he would just get punched until Issei would either have to give up because he ran out of energy and mana, or Rias wouldn't want to keep watching the fight and wind up surrendering. Now, the only reason that doesn't work is that Issei is folding Riser like yesterday's laundry, fucking him up. Riser's getting punch to punch to kick to punch to punch to kick. No deal needed. Straight ass whooping, not even using the gear. At one point, Issei uses a dragon shot and blows all the way everything but Riser's foot is burnt off. It took him 20 minutes to regrow from just one foot. As he finally regrew his entire body back, as he went to say, "I haven't given up yet," as Issei would wind up, instead of actively just repetitively ripping him apart, hitting him right where it hurts the most until he say, "I give, I give." But this is when Issei wound up using would use his strongest attack, a dragon shot, point blank. As he would use it, and right before it hits, and would have honestly not killed Riser, but would have given him so much more trauma. He burns it into him, and this is when he starts just ripping at Riser, grabbing his heart and squeezing it. Of course, Riser's sister winds up flying in there saying, "Please, I'll do anything. Please let him go. I'll be yours." Any of this. Now, because of that, she pretty much just, in the eyes of the devils, gave herself to Issei. Now, of course, there's nothing anybody can say about it, and the only one who can say anything about it is Issei and her herself. She would want to move into Kuo way earlier. Now, here is when we get to the next thing. We wind up dealing with Freed Selzen, who probably should have died twice. Now, Issei running it, he running everybody's pockets. He flying in, fucking people up, flying in, fucking people up. He finds Kogabil. Kogabil trying to fight. Kogabil getting his ass whooped. Since Issei from jump is just pounding Kogabil's head into the ground, ripping his wings off, folding his ass. Ripped all but one pair of wings off, and started making it where he only had a single pair of wings. As he's punching him in the face repetitively, non-stop. 4 hours worth of an ass whooping. When the fight is finally done, Issei stands over him, eyes directed at him. Ask him if he's done, because a war between him is a war between the true King of Shadows and a pathetic little crow. Kogabil winds up getting caught by the White Dragon. Now, the White Dragon sees both all three, Issei, Mitsuda, Monohama, so he sees the Purple Dragon, the Blue Dragon, the Red Dragon, and he sees his ass being the only one on his side. He's like, fuck. Any of them could fold his ass. They don't want to get folded. He doesn't want to get folded, so he realizes, I'm going to just take this dude and go. And he flies out of there. Of course, Issei was still hanging out with Sir's Exhibit. Issei was hanging with Azazel a little bit, figuring out how strong Azazel was, but still. They chillin', doing their thing. Issei drank with him a little bit, had some good fun. Anyway, whenever they finally finished what they were doing, they wind up meeting the last dudes. They go to hell during season 3. They all do their training montage. Issei fucks Tannen up really bad. It's how it goes. After Issei's done folding Tannen the entire time, Tannen is also training with Saji, and Issei in this version was just using his shadows to train with everybody else too. As he could kind of just teleport through the thing, and it was supposed to have a 1 use per day in the series of solo leveling. Issei makes it like 3 uses per day. Although that means he can only travel so many times, but he also has the incredible speed and strength to fly and appear. Now, of course, the final battle was between Rias's team and Cyberorg's team. Issei, they wind up saying you have to get a 12 to send Issei out, and a 12 to send Cyberorg out. They send Issei out first. First thing Rias rolled, 12. First thing that Cyberorg's team rolled out, a 12. They were allowed to send everybody on their team out, except for 2. So it was the Pawn and Cyberorg himself. That team wound up fucking trying to kill Issei. They got fucked up really bad. Issei soloed the entire team by himself, brought his shadows out just to style on everybody. Now, of course, Cyberorg and his Pawn wind up having a fight in a 2v Rias's team, but Issei's not allowed to go. Now, they make a deal. Rias isn't allowed to get put in there either. Cyberorg is allowed to use 2 Phoenix Tears between bouts. 1 Phoenix Tear during the fight and 1 Phoenix Tear after said fight. Now, of course, he would use his little gear and become a full Nemean lion. As they would go to fight, Issei would fly in and just boom! 1 shot. They're fighting. He brings out the shadows, starts styling on his ass. It's done. Of course, I didn't mention Loki's because Loki's didn't really happen. When Loki showed up, he just got his ass whooped. And that's I guess, the end of High School DxD. And I didn't mention Juggernaut Drive just because Issei just ripped it apart. Took Asya down, and when they went to go put that light power on her, Issei just backhanded the fuck out of it. And everyone who would have been killed in that fight, everybody who would have died due to the fact that they were fighting and they died, Issei just revives them. It's how it do. And that's the end of What If Issei and his friends had... Oh wait, there's one more thing I have to do. Issei became his own devil. He became a devil king. As a devil king, he wound up getting Matsuda Monohampo, turning them into devils, making a leveling system thing for them. They all chillin'. They are pretty much the three strongest things in the verse. They wind up one day, Issei finds Great Red. He wants to fight Great Red, see how strong Great Red is. He kills Great Red and Opus, and then turns them into his shadows. And he is now the strongest thing by ever. Even though no one can fuck with him. He reaches max level. Can't level up anymore. So he's just sitting on a throne, surrounded by his own minions. Just waiting on the next person to give the leveling system to. He would become the statue, although different statues as the fighters around him, they were all his companions. Though he would become the statue that would wind up giving everyone else their powers. And that's the end of What If Issei had the solo leveling system. Or What If Issei and his friends had the solo leveling system.